You've been served of some of the other political stories we're following for you right here on Channels Television. Let's get the icing and get deep down into the cake. Let's get talking, everyone. You know the menu, of course. What is happening in Bayelsa State is what gets us talking. It was a surprise to many and a rude shock to others after the highest court in the land today gave its verdict, throwing a spanner in the wheel of the inauguration of the Bayelsa State Governor-elect, Mr. David Lyon, which was has been earlier scheduled for tomorrow, Friday, February the 13th. The Supreme Court sacked Mr. David Lyon of the All Progressives Congress today at a sitting, and his running mate, Mr. B. Obakuma Diego Eremiayo, in the November the 16th, 2019 election. The Apex Court, in a unanimous judgment delivered by Justice Ejembi Eko, ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to withdraw the certificate of return issued to Mr. Lyon and a fresh one issued to the governorship candidate with the highest votes cast and wide geographical spread in the governorship election held on the 16th of November 2020. Mr. Lyon was sacked for presenting a running mate with fake certificate in the said election. With this judgment, the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Diri Duoye, is with the highest lawful vote and with perhaps with the widest geographical spread after Mr. Lyon in the election. Well, will he eventually become the next governor of Bayelsa State? Well, that's a very big question. You might be getting answers to tonight. But let's tell you what happened earlier before the judgment was given. This is what was happening in Yanagwa. The APC candidate and the governor-elect, Mr. David Lyon, was rehearsing for tomorrow's inauguration as the governor of the state. But after the judgment was given, and this is what happened. Some of what was being prepared for tomorrow is obviously being dismantled afterwards when the judgment of the Supreme Court came to town in Yanagwa, that the preparation for this is now null and void. But in the other part of town, there's been jubilation in the camp of the PDP. So following the Supreme Court judgment that sacked David Lyon, you can see the governor, Seriake Dixon, with some of the party faithful there. But what does this mean for the party? We have a very short time, but a lot of issues to tackle tonight. What does this mean? The judgment. Have we seen this kind of situation before? Well, we're hearing a lot of Supreme Court judgments, but what does this particular one mean of today? Especially when Seriake Dixon's time as governor of Bayelsa State expires today. Let's get talking. I have a member of the Bayelsa PDP governorship election campaign organization. In fact, he was a spokesperson. Mr. Ken Okolugbo joins us here in Lagos studio. In our Abuja studio is a chieftain of the APC, Mr. Cletus Obun. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program. And we have a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Yemi Kande Johnson. Thank you, senior advocate, for joining us tonight to give us a legal perspective into what has happened. Let me get perhaps, because Ken Okolugbo and his colleagues in the APC are happy and celebrating.
In the PDP,
apologies. They are already jubilating. Let's get what this means for the APC. Mr. Cletus Obun, the APC national chairman, is saying an inauguration will not happen tomorrow. What does this mean?
Nigeria is into a period of musical chairs in our legal jurisprudence. First of all, I'm not seeing the civil society and pro-democracy groups shouting and going to embassies and going back to talk about the Supreme Court today. I'm surprised at that, and that is why there's muted jubilation. The reason is because this judgment already portends for us a constitutional crisis. First, there is no precedence to what has happened. The nearest we ever got was the Adeleke and Audu ticket in Kwara State. And when Audu died and the elections were midway, if it is a joint ticket, one had expected that his deputy should immediately take charge. In 1999, Muazu lost his deputy to a Supreme Court judgment under the same circumstances, the same Supreme Court ordered a rerun of that election with Muazu selecting his deputy to continue the election. In the case of Zamfara, which some people may want to draw allusion to, it was about the primaries and an entire primary system. This one is not about the primaries. Therefore, we are having a precedent, and I think our judges and our jurisprudence is on trial, and not even the APC.
All right,
About
Mr.
tomorrow's inauguration,
Obun, my panel tonight,
there will be no inauguration.
I
Let me say this.
would like to crave your indulgence that let's keep our interventions short and sharp because we have too much to talk about. Let me allow you to land, though. You wanted to say something.
This, the two-third that is required, PDP won in 4 local governments. 2/3 of 8 local governments can never be 4. That is half. It's not 2/3. And 2, they didn't have the 25% in 2/3 of the 8 local government, which is about 5.7 or 5.8%, which is 5 local governments. With 4 local governments, he didn't meet that. And that is what the national chairman means, and that is what the law stands for. That the court, in making its ruling, quietly said it is according to spread and the highest number of votes. If they have the highest number of votes next, they didn't have the 2/3 required of the 8 local government. Therefore, they cannot be declared.
All right, let's hear from Mr. Obun. Apologies. We need to keep it short and sharp because we have so much, but not so much time. What does this mean for the PDP?
I think he should be ashamed of himself. How could he?
No, don't
illegal?
say that. You know,
why? Why do I say this?
No, don't. Those words
it could be quite strong, but there's certain times some languages can be forgiven. He's a lawyer. I'm not even a lawyer. What did the Supreme Court say? The Supreme Court said that they were never candidates, so all their votes go to nothing. You see, when we said that the elections in Bayelsa was one of the worst elections that ever took place in the history of this country, those votes were manufactured votes because it made it impossible for maybe we're going to go to the tribunal, and by the time we get to the tribunal, it will be difficult to obtain those results. And that's they're living in a fool's paradise. David Lyon and his deputy, their votes come to nothing.
Is that what the law says?
That is what it says now. And so we are basing those votes on what was garnered by Doyediri and the rest of the candidates. Doyediri is going to collect his certificate of return, and he's going to be sworn in. So Oshimole is not even the Attorney General of this country.
What the court said?
Why would he say that he will not be sworn in?
Are you happy with the Supreme Court?
Oh, we are very happy. In fact, I was talking with Claire, one of the integral members of our campaign yesterday. Incidentally, most people didn't even know about this case coming up. It will interest you that the High Court, FN Wosu, said that the only way the certificates of the deputy governor, which is a Reminayo, could have held sway is that if it was a woman who has married like 5 husbands. You will know that in 1976, the first certificate he has was Degi Bielboriara. In 1984, his secondary school certificate was Adegi Biobukuma. By the time he got to the university, he turned it to Ereminayo Degi Biokuroma. So you see, there were 5 different certificates with 5 different names.
You know the reason why
and if
I'm asking...
if the High Court and the Appeal Court has told the same line, and the Supreme Court only came to affirm what the High Court and the Appeal Court has done, why is it finding it strange? What's the legal jurisprudence is talking about? Section 186 and Section 187 of the Constitution clearly says what the deputy governor is to the governorship ticket in a race. So it's a joint ticket.
So, I mean, your party is happy with...
We are very happy. You can see the tribulation in Bayelsa. It's obvious they raped us in Bayelsa. Of course, we're not happy with Imo. Imo has been condemned worldwide. What we said is the situations we have here are 2 different situations. Somebody forged, and he's proud enough to come and sit down and tell us that he's not happy. Somebody has been a sitting senator for that matter. He's been proving that he forged these certificates. He's going to have to leave the Senate seat. In fact, for the first time in history, we're going to have 3 seats declared vacant in the Senate because Doyediri and Irujapo are sitting senators who are going to be sworn in.
Let me come to you, senior advocate. Give us a sense of what this means. Have you heard or seen this kind of judgment before, and what is the implication?
Well, I haven't seen this sort of judgment before. I think that it's clear that it's a right royal mess. The Supreme Court must, to some degree, be embarrassed and maybe in some way responsible to preside over what is a bombshell in the electoral and political fate of Bayelsa State. The way that I look at this, I haven't read the judgment, and I think that you asked for my comment as an observer, because I don't think that the people and the voters of Bayelsa State need to read a 70-page judgment to determine what is the meaning of a change that's been made in their electoral outcome. The purpose of an election is to test the will of the majority and determine by a recognized, open, fair, and transparent process what the people want. What is clear from the reports that we've received about this judgment is that the decision of the majority of the people has been set aside by the Supreme Court on the basis that one of the members of the winning ticket, had falsified documents, which is, of course, a crime, and he himself was disqualified. That is the legality of it. But when judges decide cases in the political realm, they're always going to suffer loss of reputation. They're going to suffer loss of credibility. The importance of judges is to hold the balance, the political development and the political order, to sustain the political order. They are an instrument of government, and this is their primary function, to hold the balance between people so that the political order will be settled and stable. When the judges give a decision which unsettles the political order, which causes chagrin and consternation amongst members of the public, then one needs to wonder whether they have considered very carefully their objective. I don't want to comment on the strict legality of a decision, but when you get to a situation where, as in many cases recently, the courts are substituting their opinion for the opinion of the electorate on sometimes ultra-legalistic and arcane legal points, it is a very dangerous situation.
All right. Senior Advocate, let me, apologies to Botin. There are very critical issues here. Some of what I've deduced from the Supreme Court, a brief of what the judgment looks like today. One of it is the fact that the nearest or the runner-up should be given a certificate of return. Then secondly, there is also a statement by the Supreme Court that the person that has the widespread. In that sense, there are two major clauses here. Do you see a situation where there will be a stalemate should there be anyone without a spread?
Well, this is a difficulty the Supreme Court has put itself in. Sure, there are two questions. First of all, the Supreme Court has decided that the person who wins the highest number of votes should not be sworn in as governor. That, I think, is a dangerous political and social precedent. It undermines the entire purpose of elections. The second question is as to whether the person who comes next was qualified by any of the requirements of electoral law to be governor at all. Now, the electoral law makes it very clear that you must not only win the majority of votes, that's been set aside. Electoral law also says that you must win a spread, because the idea is that the geographic spread guarantees the widest participation of the widest number. If this individual who has been declared winner by the Supreme Court not only did not get the majority of votes, but also did not gain the necessary geographic spread, then the Supreme Court has, by legalism, utterly subverted the will of the people of Bayelsa State, and this creates
perhaps, apologies again to the advocate. I need your quick intervention on this. So we understand as we speak that, well, the person that should have come next is the PDP candidate, Dioye, not yet gotten the certificate of return from INEC because INEC said he's still stored in the judgment. So what then happens at the expiration of the tenure of Seriake Dixon?
Well, the constitutional succession, I think, will be clear. It would be the speaker. I believe if there's a speaker sworn in, the speaker would be the acting governor. That is the next person in line of succession. So there wouldn't be a vacuum. The law does not recognize a vacuum in offices of state. Somebody will hold that function. But I think that there will be a very bumpy road in Bayelsa State tonight and the next few days.
All right. Let me get back to our Abuja studio with Mr. Cletus Obun. When a judgment favors politicians, they say, well, our judicial process is improving and developing. When it does not, the political class will say there is a problem with judiciary. How does the judiciary look in the eye of the APC now?
Well, precisely. You can see that the APC, including myself and the national chairman and every other member of the party, is looking at the legal implications and going through the civilized method of having to approach the issue rather than throwing big bats at the Supreme Court. You will agree with me that ab initio, Justice Odile is married in Rivers State from Imo State. We see this judgment as a vengeful judgment. Vengeful in the sense that coming from Rivers State, a neighboring state with Bayelsa, and being married to a Rivers State former governor of PDP, the very reason for which the president of the appeal court was refused and asked to recuse herself. APC didn't do well by not first of all raising the red flag when they saw her on that panel. Having said so, on her own integrity and honor, she ought to have excused herself and recused herself from that position, given that she is from same Mbise with Ihodioha. She is from Rivers State, where she already gave a perpetual injunction for her husband never to be tried. So the likelihood of bias was very heavy against her, and one would have thought that either APC would do it or on her own, on her honor, she should have declined. So I do think that to that extent, APC is going to ask for a judicial review, and of course the stalemate already created by her pronouncement of giving certificate at the same time meeting the spread is going to throw the whole of Bayelsa and our own jurisprudence and the political system into a great quagmire. So we are going into a mire on the basis of a judgment that was hastily done with vengeance, leading the judge to take the kind of decision she took.
Let's get the view of the PDP man, Mr. Okolugbo. In the eye of the law, or in the eye of PDP rather, the same question I threw to Mr. Obun. How does the judiciary look?
It's funny he's impugning on the integrity of Mary Odili. There are 5 judges. It was a unanimous decision. So if Mary Odili could control 4 other judges, could she control their psyche or control their brains? The truth about it is that 2 courts had already ruled. In Imo State, 2 courts did not rule in favor. The High Court ruled that the certificates were forged. I gave you the scenario of what the judge said. There's only a married woman that would change names the way the senator changed names, and that all the certificates were fake. The appeal court upheld the High Court's judgment, and the Supreme Court only came to put paid to exactly what the 2 lower courts had done. So what we are saying here is the man has forged his certificates. He should even vacate his seat in the Senate. It's going to go beyond just getting Bayelsa back in terms of the governorship election contest that went. He will have to also vacate his seat in the Senate. And I don't know this stalemate they're talking about, Shin. It beats my imagination. Doyediri is going to be sworn in as a governor of Bayelsa State.
Even without the certificate of return?
He will get it. You know what happened in the issue of Imo? The INEC would not give you the certificate of return without the judgment. He hasn't gotten the judgment.
All right.
Once he gets a copy of the judgment, he will serve it on INEC, and INEC will give him the certificate of return. INEC cannot act on the basis of the news they're hearing.
Let's get the senior advocate to wrap up for us. Mr. Kande Johnson, where do you see us moving? The judiciary is in the middle of the political clash, the political elites fighting over the soul of the country here. Where do you see us moving forward? What do you see?
Well, as on a legal point, the INEC must obey the Supreme Court decision. It's the final decision of the land. There's no question about that. But as I said earlier on, the issues are beyond legality, and the political order, the stability of society. These are key things that should have been considered by the court, and I assume they have. But then the bigger problem, of course, which arises from this criminality, which has been brought into the process by the deputy governor, the senator, the candidate presenting forged certificates, is a failure of the electoral process and a failure of the Independent National Electoral Commission to detect this in advance. This should never have come to the courts. It is not the job of the courts to decide electoral contests. The INEC has failed, and this failure is what has brought the court and the legal system into opprobrium and disrespect.
All right. Mr. Yemi Kande Johnson, it's a pleasure having you on a very interesting, highly intense evening across the land over the Supreme Court judgment. Thank you so much for talking to us. Mr. Ken Okolugbo, a member of the PDP, and Mr. Cletus Obun, a chieftain of the APC. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. Well, that's our show tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I guess you have your perspective. Good night, everyone.